Welcome to the Steroids Podcast with your host, Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Boom! Boom! Let's get started here. The Steroids Podcast is brought to you by Ultimate Guide to Roids, 109-page ebook by Dan the Bodybuilder from Thailand. Now, for the first time in bodybuilding history, you have someone with no corporate interests and no obligation to please anyone, not walking on eggshells to not offend. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the information, the whole truth, not a full truth and a half truth, full truth. Ultimate Guide to Roids gives you the keys to the Lamborghini, gives you the information, and lets you decide what to do with it. It's a crime this information has been suppressed this long. Now let's get on with the podcast.
Okay, we're going to start out this episode of the Steroids Podcast today talking about Roid Rage. So, if there's any confusion on whether or not Roid Rage exists, let me tell you this. Steroids, whether they're estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, etc., whether they're male or female, having steroid levels be changing, fluctuating in your body, and having abnormal levels of them is going to affect your mood. So when you're using steroids, it's going to affect your mood, okay? You know how women on birth control, it affects their mood. It affects the way they feel. So using steroids, for muscle building, it affects your mood and the way you feel, okay? So it doesn't do it all the time. It doesn't change your personality. It just, if you had like an equalizer, you know how you have an equalizer for audio and it has low frequencies, low mid-range frequencies, and then high-range frequencies, mid-high-range frequencies. You know, you can adjust all these levels, okay? So those levels of you and your personality that are already there, taking the steroids, it adjusts some of those levels on that equalizer, you know, like some of those lows or some of those highs, and like adjust them up and down. And just in general, there's a little more highs and lows. They definitely don't force you to do anything. They don't force you to do any kind of bad behavior. Some people say like, oh, well, like, I acted that way because I was on roids, and you know, the roids may have influenced you a little bit to have a certain initial reaction to a certain situation, because they can do that. They can influence your initial reaction that your body has, where you feel a certain way within moments, in a situation dealing with other people. But just like alcohol, they don't force you to do anything. They certainly do not force you to be violent. That's definitely a misconception. You know what? The kind of people that take steroids generally feel a bit insecure, or they are perfectionists, you know? And perfectionists, the reason why they feel insecure is because they have such high expectations for themselves. Or, you know, somebody that just starts out with a big ego. Obviously, for every positive, there's also the negative. So starting out with a big ego also have, you know, some large insecurities. And so that person has high expectations, very high expectations for themselves. And that can be a type of person that can be being affected emotionally by having hormones in their body. Bottom line is, what I wanted to say is that it's just like alcohol, though, or anything else. It doesn't force you to do any behavior or any action. You're in control. And the thing with the steroids too is that it doesn't like consciously affect your mind or like make you high or anything like that. So you're very much in control. You may be influenced a little bit to be in certain moods, but the bottom line is that you don't want to be a bully, and you're going to be bigger and stronger than other people. And then here's what steroids do is they take away the fight or flight impulse on the flight side. They make it so that you're not scared. All right, there's a wind blower. You're gonna have to deal with that for a moment. Sorry about that. Nothing I can do about it. With the steroids, they're gonna remove the feeling of fear when you get in a fight or flight situation where you get challenged to a fight or something like that, or you're in a dangerous. They don't remove the feeling of fear when you're in a dangerous situation so much, because they do increase some like paranoia type of feelings. But when you're going to be in a potential altercation with someone, you no longer have any sense of fear associated with having it go to a physical point. When you're natural, you always feel like, that's the last goddamn thing that I want to happen. Or at least for the most part. At least for the most part. That's what you're thinking. For most people, there are some delinquents, who like fighting. But most natural people who aren't on steroids are deathly afraid of fighting, okay? That's like the last thing on earth that they want to do, okay? They have a deep fear of getting in a physical altercation. And I can tell you that when you are on steroids, you will not have that fear anymore. That goes away, okay? So, that's the truth, all right? And just remember, though, that, you've got nothing to prove if you're on steroids. You don't need to be physically fighting with people. That's ridiculous. You're already big and strong, and everyone can see that and knows it. And then if you go being this guy that's like, big and bigger and stronger than other people, and people are already going to be just seeing you and thinking like, oh, well, that guy's probably aggressive, and then you just like prove that stereotype true by being some out of control monkey that is injecting himself with hormones and creating scenes in public, getting in physical altercations, can't control himself. It just makes you look like a complete fucking loser, dude. You don't want to be that guy. Like, you do not want to be that guy. Everybody's gonna be watching and not think it's cool if you're being aggressive and you're on steroids and you're fighting with people. Everybody's gonna be thinking like, oh my god, this guy is like such a fucking loser. So just remember these things, okay? This is my 2 cents on Roid Rage. All right, so I wanted to get on to the first question now of the day, which this one is from MW, and he asks, Dear Dan, I have your book. I did a 10-week cycle with 250 testosterone per week and 400 Primo per week. What do you recommend for PCT? I have Clomid, Nolva, HGH, Proviron. Also, I hear many guys use Proviron in PCT. Thanks in advance. Yeah, the Proviron in PCT. So, the Proviron in old guys, it increases their sperm count. I'm not sure if it does in younger guys or not. But what it does do really good is that it increases your sex drive, your libido. So if you go into PCT, you just did a 250 testosterone, 400 Primobolan per week cycle, and now you're going to do the PCT with the Clomid, Nolva, HCG, and Proviron. I mean, you might have a higher sex drive on your PCT than you had on your cycle if you used 50 milligrams of Proviron per day, for example. So that's how strong Proviron is at helping your sex drive. So that's why people like to use it during PCT. Generally, though, on HCG, doing something like 2,000 or 3,000 IUs per week. So, like Monday and Thursday doing 1,000 IUs, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday doing 1,000 IUs, something like that. And doing that of HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin, intramuscular injection. Doing that for 3, 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks or so. Usually that's a fine PCT. The nolvadex and Clomid, you can put in there too, and that will make it even better. You can do those at nolvadex at 20 to 40 milligrams, Clomid at 25 to 50 milligrams per day each, with the HCG in there at the dosages said before, and then the Proviron. Proviron starts to be effective at 25 milligrams per day, and then from 50 to 75 milligrams per day, it's really effective. It also has some oily skin effects and acne effects that it can have as you increase the dosage. And it's usually like deep under the skin, cystic acne. So not fun type of acne. That's if you're really susceptible to it. But even me, for example, I get acne once I start running more. If I run 50 milligrams Proviron per day or more, I'll start getting a little bit of acne. And I'm somebody who doesn't normally get acne. I did when I was younger, but I took antibiotics for a few years. And also I used isotretinoin gel on my face for about 6 months. And so that's like Accutane gel. Yeah, it's Accutane gel that I put on my face in the mornings. That's isotretinoin gel. It's the same thing as Accutane in the tablets, except you put it on your face in a gel. And that really burned when I would put it on my skin. It burns really bad for about 60 seconds. And then it's done. And yeah, I did that for 6 months after using tetracycline and minocycline antibiotics for a couple years, and that cleared up my acne because I had not like severe acne when I was a teenager, but it was pretty bad when I was about 15 until I was 17, or no, probably stopped. It kind of started going down when I was around 20 years old, 19 or 20 years old. Acne started getting not as bad anymore, but during those teenage years, I would have ones that it would make me, a really big one that would make me look like I got punched in the face or, stung by a wasp in the face or something. It would be really deep under the skin, and it sucked. So with the tetracycline, I used 250 to 500 milligrams per day. My doctor prescribed that for me, my general practitioner doctor. 250 to 500 milligrams per day of tetracycline for a couple years. And that is really effective because acne is caused by bacteria creating little infections in your skin. And if you're on the antibiotics, your body becomes an inhospitable place for bacteria. So when the bacteria make their way down into your pore, they can't replicate down there. They just die when they get down there. And so the antibiotics, when you take it like that daily, and that's what I did for a couple years, it makes your body a totally inhospitable place for those acne-causing bacteria to get down into your skin. They just die when they get in you. So it sort of stops acne from the inside out. So that was really, really effective for me. The thing with people that have acne is that I always think man, you got to go to your doctor and get that taken care of, because they can really help you. They have stuff, and they will really help you. A lot of people want to go straight for Accutane, but that stuff is really harsh on your system. It makes you pretty unhealthy while you're on it. It's really a strain, and so they make you come see them and do blood work once every 2 weeks or once a month when you're on Accutane. They really don't like to prescribe that one, but the other stuff they can do the Accutane gel. They'll prescribe that, no problem, usually, and also the antibiotics, very effective. If you're doing this stuff like, the new thing that they've got on TV, or the new skincare product that says anti-acne advertised at the mall or whatever the new celebrity is using, that is nowhere near as effective as what they can do for you at the doctor, and they can really solve your acne problems. So for you guys that have acne, just go see your doctor, and they're going to be more than happy to help you, get that war zone off of your face, because that's what it was like for a lot of guys that I knew, and it was kind of a low-grade war zone, I guess, on my face when I was a teenager, and that was like screwing up my life. Life is so much better without acne, so make sure to just go get a doctor's appointment or something like that. You can talk to me a little bit more if you want. Hit me up if you want to talk a little bit more about acne. All right, next question is from Alien Genetics. I used about half cc of testananthate from a vial about 7 to 8 months ago. I realized it may have not been the smartest thing. Is there a risk of infection even with sterile injection practices? Okay, so I think he's saying that he opened a vial of steroids from 7 to 8, or he did it 7 to 8 months ago, and he was using it like using testosterone from that vial, and then he waited 7 to 8 months. I think that's what he means. And then now, 7 to 8 months later, after using it, he now is using it again. So the thing with this is, did you always draw with a clean needle that hadn't been into your body? A mistake that someone could make that could contaminate the vial would be taking an injection and then sticking the needle back into the vial. I'm not saying that you did this. I'm just saying there's probably some people here listening to this who may have done this or may do this, okay? And if you do, stop doing it. May have given themselves an injection, then taken the needle out of themselves, and then stuck the needle back in the vial and filled up more oil, and then given themselves a second injection right there, in the same go. Okay? And so if you're doing this, just don't do it, because you're contaminating the vial, even though it is bacteria from your own body that you're like sticking into the vial, like with you put it in there and there's blood and fluid and everything. It is your own body, but it's not good. And something like that could cause infection. That could be introducing bacteria that could grow in the vial, even though it's from your own body. But that would be not a good thing to do. That would be a way of contaminating the vials. So if you're going to inject yourself with the same needle that you draw with, draw the oil from the vial with, then you can only do it one time and it's done. So don't be trying to do it a couple times. And then the best way to do it is to have 2 needles. So if you have a 3cc syringe, it's good to start out and put something like an 18 gauge or a 20 gauge needle on the tip and stick it into the steroid vial, and then pull back the plunger on the syringe. And since you're using that big needle, 18 gauge or 20 gauge, it has a big circumference, and the oil just comes flowing into the syringe very quickly, like really fast and really easy. You don't have to sit there spending time waiting for the oil to come into the vial from the suction. It's just like, boop, instant comes in when you pull back the plunger. And then after you get the oil that you want from the vial into your syringe, then you pull the needle, the 18 gauge needle, out of the steroids vial, and you then take the needle off of the syringe. So now you have a syringe with steroids inside with no needle. And now you attach a new needle that you have, something like a 25 gauge or a 27 gauge, right? And this is going to now be a brand new fresh needle that's never pierced anything. It never pierced any rubber in the steroid vial. And so it's going to be so sharp and pain-free and small. And you're going to attach that to the syringe and then give yourself the injection. That's the way that I do it. That's that, in my opinion, that's the best way to do it. Because if you are wanting pain-free injections, it makes a huge difference to not have had that needle go through the rubber stopper of the steroid vial before you try to push it into your skin. If you look at pictures that they've taken pictures of the tips of needles with electron microscopes. So it's very, very, very small right at the tip. And they show what it looks like after it's like passed through your skin or passed through something like that after it's been used once. And the thing's all jagged and all bent up and stuff because it's so small and so like flexible. You don't want to be using, after you see something like that and how it's all curved and like a hook. It's on a microscopic level, you know. They're looking at this with an electron microscope to be able to see this, but it doesn't look good, man. It doesn't look good. So that's after it's been used once, what happens to this very small, so tiny, sharp point tip of the needle. And you'll notice that if you just use this new needle that you put on after you take out the steroid oil from into the syringe, if you just put on this new needle that is small and completely unused, never passed through anything, and then plunge it straight through into your skin, into your body, it is so much more pain-free than the other way. So that's what I think. Also, never obviously share steroid vials with anyone else. If anyone else has used anything from another steroid vial, just have a policy of you won't touch it. You will never touch it. If they ever offer anything to you or anything like that, just say no. You should be taking steroids should not be a social activity. Okay? Taking steroids should not be a social activity. It's something you do by yourself. So, never do any steroids from someone else's vial that they've used. Just keep that away from you, unless it has the cap on it. There's a little cap that you have to pop off the top of the vial to start using the vial and get to the rubber stopper. Make sure that cap is on there. Okay, next question is from a man of God. Tom Platts has a freaky jaw at 18. What do you think he was running? What would be the best anabolic androgenic steroid for bigger jaw other than surgery? How long would I have to run human growth hormone to get a bigger jaw? Yeah, so steroids do kind of change your face shape because there's muscles all over your face, and there's muscles that you use for chewing. But the main points of your head that change shape a little bit is the area right next to your temples. If you touch your temple, to right behind your eye socket on the side of your head, if you put your hand there and you close your jaw and flex it, press your teeth together, and now open up your jaw all the way so that it's wide, and now close it again and flex your teeth together, you can see that there's a muscle right there on the side of your head that moves it. You'll be feeling it right there in that area where your temple is behind your eye socket. And that area and that muscle that controls the chewing of your jaw like that. That grows definitely, and it changes the way that your head shape looks, because you get this part of your head on the outside like that that's growing outwards, and that's a super androgenic, like, athlete or super masculine like look. I'm not saying it's attractive, I'm just saying like how it's interpreted socially. So that is one major change, and it's the first change to your head shape that happens. And then the next thing would be the muscle under your chin and under your jaw. Okay, the area, it's above your neck, but then it's under your jawbone, and the muscle there, it will start to grow, and it will start to hang down below your jawbone. So you'll have your jawbone on the outside of your face and around where your chin is, but it'll almost look like you have a little bit of a double chin, or like something hanging down like below your jaw. There's a look of there's something hanging down right below that jawbone. and it's muscle. You'll see this on a lot of guys, a lot of big guys. And you'd be like, what the hell? Or something like that. Like, I don't think most people notice it, actually. It's not something that really jumps out at you, but a lot of guys, if you look at it, that are really big, or just pretty big, just guys who are using steroids frequently, you'll see them have this muscle that sort of looks like a double chin, just slightly like a double chin or something if you really look closely, and it's this muscle hanging down below their jawbones. That's the major changes that happen with your face shape. As far as growth hormone, if you're just using something like 4 to 6 IUs per day, you don't really get side effects like bones growing all over the place, unless you're unusual. But the majority of people don't get side effects like bones growing all over the place, or changing head shapes, or fingers or hands changing sizes, stuff like that. It doesn't really, at dosages like 4 to 6 IUs per day, there's not really a big effect seen with that. It's guys that are using 10 IUs per day up for long periods of time. They're the guys that are getting more side effects with things just growing on their body. So as far as my bones in my head go, they haven't changed much while I've been using steroids. They pretty much look the same as they always have. The bones, just the muscles that surround my head and my jaw, they have changed. Okay, next question. Oh, you said what steroids do that? Oh, okay. Testosterone does it, and I mean, just anything that's really anabolic. If you're building a lot of muscle and you're eating a lot of food, you'll just start noticing it. And if you're on the right roids to build a lot of muscle, and you're eating a lot of food, and you're building a lot of muscle strength and weight, you'll just start noticing it. Okay, so the next question is from Underwood. I've talked to a few guys who have felt that their body image is distorted, and one said that he thought everyone who uses steroids has at least a little body image distortion. What do you think? Yeah, I think that the reason for the body image distortion is because of expectations and self-image, okay? So when guys are natural, they might have a low body image because they want to look like somebody who, really looks different from the population. And, everyone knows that they spend time at the gym and on their diet, as soon as they see them. So, that would be like looking like a steroid user. That's their expectations for themselves. So they can have a low body image and, want their body in that way to reflect the time that they're putting in to their training and diet. But then, once a guy's on steroids and he starts internalizing, I use steroids, then he starts thinking in his head, I need to look like, I'm getting my gains out of, this health risk that I'm doing, and, money and everything. You feel like in your self-image, I'm on roids, so I want to make sure that, my body is, looking really good. And if that's like not happening the way that you want it to, or it's sometimes guys don't want a PCT, or they don't want to cruise and just do TRT for a while. They always want to stay on cycle, because maybe that body image thing is going on. And the thing is that as you keep on doing this, doing bodybuilding, you keep having higher and higher expectations for yourself. And that's usually where the bad body image comes from, because you keep having these expectations of yourself of I'm doing this hard work, I'm doing a lot of these chemicals, putting them into my body, and I'm doing a lot of hard work in the gym and on my diet, and I expect myself to be looking like a bodybuilder, all the time, and have all these things present, all these qualities present, and no exceptions. And so, as that fluctuates, or as you're putting all that pressure on yourself over time, it can create a bad body image. So the main thing is just learning in life, patience, and learning to love the process of what you do. Okay, so if you're just sitting around all day doing nothing, that's not fun. So you choose to do bodybuilding because you think that seems like fun. All right, so you choose to do it. So you got to enjoy the process of getting there and learn some patience, and know that, hey, just dreaming about having the end result, the body, that's not really what's going to give you the happiness that you're seeking from this activity. The happiness is in the climb. That's where the joy comes from. So this is a hard concept. This is a hard lifelong concept to learn, and it takes a lot of patience. And it's something that personally I'm trying to keep on my mind every day, because that's one of the things, learning to enjoy the process, that's going to make you successful at what you put your mind to in your life, because then you're in flow. You're not resisting yourself. Okay, next question is from Hio, who asks, Dan, I have a question for your podcast and myself. What is the minimum dose of pharmaceutical grade human growth hormone needed daily to cause permanent muscle hyperplasia? So an increase of muscle cells, not just size, and not just temporary, but permanent. Okay, yeah. So he's asking, will the human growth hormone, what dosage is needed in order to make it so that my muscle cells multiply? Okay, there's two ways that things can grow. There's hyperplasia and there's hypertrophy. Okay, and hypertrophy it is when the cells that you have, they grow bigger. But then if you grow new cells, more cells, so you add more cells, that's hyperplasia. So when growth hormone and testosterone are used together at a high enough dose, you can have an increase in the number of muscle cells more than you were born with. And that effect seems to change the genetics a bit, you know? It doesn't actually change the genetics, but it changes the way that your body could look, or the limit of your genetics. But on a different note, that sounds really alluring saying that, but if you just like came off of all gear, you know, you're not going to look like you're on gear still because you got a bunch of hyperplasia from growth hormone. Look at the IFBB pros who have got some kind of illness from, a lot of times it's abusing steroids, and they've had to come off all drugs, and now look what they look like. They didn't get a bunch of hyperplasia that was making them look like they're on drugs when they're not on drugs. So there's a limit to what the hyperplasia effect does. Like, just think of human growth hormone like this, okay? It's really synergistic with anabolic steroids. So everything that steroids do, well, human growth hormone makes those steroids do those things a lot better. Like, human growth hormone and steroids together are the two most powerful ways that you can manipulate where the food that you eat, where the energy from that food goes to what cells in your body, okay? So that's why you use growth hormone. And, you know, as far as the hyperplasia, or you could say getting a different look that kind of sticks with you, you know, anecdotally, that begins somewhere around 4 IU of pharmaceutical grade per day, but I'm talking very mildly, and I'm talking over, like, you know, more than a year and straight of using it with steroids at the same time. But really getting a lot of hyperplasia where things start growing, like finger lengthening or foot lengthening, stuff like that. That's usually a combination of a couple things. First, using insulin with growth hormone at the same time, and then second, usually the growth hormone above 10 to 15 IU per day. And yeah, that's about it. Or using IGF-1. The injectable IGF-1 has a major effect on growing body parts, growing heads, growing noses, stuff like that. So it's the synergy of guys using, you know, 10 to 15 IUs of growth hormone per day and up, and insulin and injectable IGF-1. Those are the things that cause all the weird stuff with bodybuilders these days, where they have like a weird head or weird hands or weird feet or a big gut, a big pregnant gut. It's those three products being used together. All right, so on to the next question. It is from Janana. What effects do steroids have on the mind and social life? Do they affect motivation outside of gym? Well, as I've stated before, they make you have a bit more like highs and lows emotionally. They make you a little bit more prone to the ebbs and flows of life affecting you and getting an initial reaction, because they make the way that you feel about events happening, or especially quick things happening, like a car backfiring, or you know, some type of loud sound. They make your initial reflex or your reaction more intense. And that goes with emotional things too, like your emotional reactions that happen in the first second when you are going to have a reaction. It can just be a more intense feeling on your body, and so that's how they affect you there. But they also help sort of produce the essence of a champion, or like a winner, or a leader, or some. They can be used like as a tool, because they do allow you to focus on things more. You can choose one task and focus on it, get fixated on it, dwell on it. Targeting behavior. It's slightly improved in general, just in your life in general. Putting your essence and your will into working on a project. Medium doses of steroids seem to help with that. High dosages of steroids, they just fuck up your whole life. So guys that think, if you think that, you gotta take all this stuff, and you gotta be being realistic here, not doing all adding a bunch of stuff to it. Because yeah, if you're taking 500 to 1,000, or even up to maybe like 1,500 milligrams total maximum of steroids per day or per week, more like around 1,000 though, total. 500 to 1,000 total would be optimum. Yeah, it's going to give you an edge in your life all the way around, not just in the gym. It's going to give you a little boost all the way around in your life. But if you start getting up into really high dosages, like above 2 grams or above, no, that's just going to be detracting from your life in every way. Detracting also even from your motivation for the gym, because you won't feel very good. Okay, next question is from Ryan, who asks, "Hey Dan, what compounds would you take as a high-functioning entrepreneur that wants to be lean and jacked while staying healthy and productive year-round? I am currently on 200 milligrams testosterone only, but I am considering adding in 3 to 4 IUs pharmaceutical-grade growth hormone and 1,000 milligrams metformin, as well as low dose of a SARM and cardarine and yohimbine. What drugs would you take if money wasn't an issue, and why would you take them?" Okay, so you're on 200 milligrams of testosterone or testosterone. Yeah, I would add in the growth hormone at 4 IUs per day. That's the dosage that gives a really amazing effect, like a really good effect that you'll really enjoy. But at the same time, there's not much noticeable side effects, really. Not much at all for most people. So 4 IU is the best dosage. 4 to 6 IU, that's usually the best dosage for most people. So you're going to do that. Yep, the metformin, put that in there with that too. It's kind of a strange question, like you're an entrepreneur that you want to be lean and jacked but healthy. Okay, this is how I'm going to answer the question. If you want to be lean, jacked, healthy, then mostly stay away from anything oral. So, and because you're going to have more energy if you stay away from oral steroids, except for just dabbling a little bit. Because things to take like Anadrol every once in a while, or Anavar, or Winstrol, or Dianabol, it can just be fun, to be honest, because it gives you a big boost in the gym. It can just be fun. But they do make you more tired. They sap your energy a bit. So if you want to be healthy and you want to be, and money's not an issue, for me, this is what I would do is I would take something like 2 cc's of testosterone and 2 to 4 cc's of Primobolan per week. So that would be like somewhere between like 4 to 500 IUs of 4 to 500 milligrams of testosterone and 2 to 400 milligrams of Primobolan per week. And then I would do the metformin, like you said, 1,000 milligrams per day when I woke up. And I'd also do the growth hormone, 4 IU per day, and divide that into 2 shots, morning and lunchtime, or morning and dinner time. And that would be it. You could really do a lot on that. You won't be an IFBB pro, but you'll be way more. You have the potential on that stack to be pretty damn healthy and be way more muscular than the average Joe walking around on the street. Like, everyone who sees you anywhere is going to know instantly when they see you, that guy goes to the gym and lifts weights. You can get to that level using that. So that's what I would do. The next question is from Jordan. "Hey Dan, how do you go about AI dosage when transitioning from a blast to a cruise? When should I start lowering the amount of Anti Estrogen I'm taking?" Oh yeah. So when you're going from a blast to a cruise, just take the dosage as needed. If you're normally taking something like 2 to 4 tablets per week, well, the first week that you get to the cruise, just keep on taking what you've normally been taking for that first week of the cruise, because the testosterone from the previous weeks is still going to be in your system pretty strong at that point. And then once once that first week is over, you can start experimenting with reducing the dosage a bit of the anti-estrogen, and keep on reducing it until you start seeing symptoms, and then keep it at a little bit more than that. The thing with the anti-estrogen is estrogen symptoms don't pop up overnight and then be permanent or something like that. If you get any estrogen effects when you feel something like itchy nipples, or it's kind of hard to pee, or your face is very bloated, or you have some acne or something like that, when you see that symptom, it's fine to just go take an arimidex or an exemestane, aromasin, or letrozole tablet, and then in a few hours those symptoms go away. It only takes a few hours for those things to kick in and start giving relief of any estrogen symptoms you might be having. So these kind of things are things that they're low stress. Taking an anti-estrogen, it's a low stress activity. I think guys are worried, like, oh shit, what if I get gyno or something like that they're going to get burned? Well, here's how you can avoid that. When you start taking the steroids, already have the anti-estrogen tablets with you. You can't take the steroids and then say, okay, if I get estrogen side effects, then I'm going to go buy a anti-estrogen chemical or medicine. That's how you get permanent gyno, okay? So what you do is you don't start taking any steroids until you already have the anti-estrogen tablets with you, okay? Even if you have your steroids, you can't start taking them yet until you've got those anti-estrogen tablets too. That's how you're going to avoid ever getting any kind of permanent gyno or any kind of really horrible issues from having crazy high estrogen levels. So, like I said, if you start your cycle and you've already got your anti-estrogen on hand, then you're fine. And this is a low stress thing now. You've already done the work. Now, dealing with your estrogen on cycle, it's a low stress thing. If you get some symptoms, just take some anti-estrogen, and there'll be a normal amount of anti-estrogen that you know makes you feel good each week, and you'll troubleshoot it. You'll figure it out. Just experiment taking another tablet here, or another cup, or another less tablet there. And no, this is not medical advice, and I am not a doctor, and I do not recommend any of this. I'm just having a conversation, bro. So, the next question is from Cher, who asks, hey, I had a question. Do I really need to do cardio if I'm trying to lose body fat? Would it be possible to reach like around 8% body fat without it? So this is the thing, is that the guys who say don't do any cardio, those are the guys that started out already skinny, and then it's like crazy hard for them to gain weight, okay? And so then when they cut, if they do cardio, they lose muscle. And so then they say to other people, oh, no, because you look at them because they're lean a lot of the time, right? So it's natural to look at them and ask what they do. But this is because of genetically how they started in the first place, was they were like small and skinny. And then that skinny gene keeps them lean while they get muscular on roids. Most people who are not like that have to do cardio. I'm sure that anecdotally, if you look back over time, when you were on your feet the most and exercising the most, and if you played a sport ever or something like that, or you can just look back at times when you were doing cardio or doing more cardio and doing not, I'm sure that almost without fail, whenever you were doing more, you weighed less, and whenever you were doing less, you weighed more. Cardio has a massive impact on a person's weight. It just does. You're burning up calories at a huge amount. So say
someone has 2,500 calories per day that their body uses for maintenance. Well, now you go do a hard cardio session and you're like a big muscular guy for an hour, and not even a hard cardio session, like a medium cardio session. Well, that's like almost 1,000 calories right there, like 800 to 1,000 calories, depending on what you're doing, which is 40% of something like 40% of your entire day's energy metabolism being added on to it. Like, it's such a massive difference. And people can say, oh yeah, just do the diet. Well, some people like to eat. There's some of these guys that are skinny naturally, they don't like to eat either. And so when they don't mind like not eating and not having food in them, they're always kind of nauseated just to begin with. But a normal person, no, they still like to eat food. And so you're going to have to add some other way to get the energy deficit. And it's cardio. Like, cardio should just be a thing. All bodybuilders would be better off doing more cardio than they do, myself included. What I really like to do as far as cardio is something that I learned from Stan Efferding. And that is going for 10 to 20 minute walks after I eat my meals. I like to eat my meal, and then after the meal, go for a 10 to 20 minute walk with my dog. And that's something like 30 to 60 minutes of cardio there per day. And then after my workout, I do 20 to 30 minutes of cardio on the bike. So it adds up to something around like an hour per day. But I want to do more. And more intense cardio too. Okay. Next question is from Joe, who asks, so currently on 200 to 250-ish Trenbolone and Anthate a week and 300 testosterone, 300 milligrams testosterone. I'm cutting on 2,250 calories per day. I'm getting trend sides like weird dreams and heat at night, but I don't look too full. I look decent pumped, but other than that, I'm looking natural. Should I up the trend? Yeah, you're running into the fact that steroids can not do too much more than doing anabolic things with the food that you give them. So that's not a lot of food. 2,250 calories is not a lot of food. If you're at all active, that's like a huge deficit. And if you don't give the Trenbolone, the gasoline, the fuel, the food to do its thing, it can't do its thing. So really all it can do is just provide some kind of cosmetic effect, which I'm sure that you see some difference from being natural, just in the way like your arms look, etc. But as far as it building muscle and being super anabolic, it doesn't really have anything to work with. So if you're on Trenbolone, you should be eating something around 3,000 calories and still be able to cut 3,000 calories per day and still be able to cut, because that stuff, it changes the ratio of how your cells take in food or take in energy and nutrition from the bloodstream. And also it slows down the excretion of protein from the blood. So you got to be taking advantage of these things, man. And, eat all those carbs after your workout, eat that protein throughout the day, and get swole on trend. Next, I don't think you should up the trend. I think that the problem is that you're not eating enough food, and I just think that that's the end of the story. The next question is from Brumbalicious. Hey bro, I bought the ebook and loving it so far. I had a quick question for you. I'm going to start a test cycle like you recommended for the first one, 750 milligrams a week. You spoke about taking anti-estrogens concurrently with cycles. Which one and what dose would you recommend for this beginner cycle? Or because it's low dose, do you not need an AI, just PCT afterwards? Yeah, I would definitely put the the anti-estrogen in your cycle, that's definitely needed. I wouldn't start taking that testosterone until I had the anti-estrogen, because you're taking 750 milligrams per week, and that's definitely, in more than 90% of people, going to cause them to have high estrogen levels. And you got to have you got to have the medication to battle against that before you start taking the steroids and giving yourself the possibility of that happening. So what you do generally is starting out, what most people do is starting out with letrozole, arimidex, or exemestane, okay? And 1 tablet of any one of those drugs 2 or 3 times per week. Starting about the 2nd week or the 3rd week after starting the 750 milligrams per week of testosterone. And then adjust the anti-estrogen dosage, taken out or adding a pill according to symptoms and side effects. That's the way most people go about dosing their anti-estrogens. But yeah, man, it's really important to have that. So I would never do a steroid cycle if I didn't have anti-estrogen tablets with me before I started, because then if I got estrogen side effects, or my nipples started swelling up or got really itchy, or if I had high blood pressure and I had a lot of water retention in my body, or a swollen moon face, or my prostate got really swollen and I was having a hard time peeing because my prostate was swollen up like a balloon, or I had whitehead acne from high estrogen levels. These are all these things that I just now said. Those are all things that can happen when you have high estrogen levels. So if you have an anti-estrogen tablet, if you ever get any of those symptoms, just take the anti-estrogen tablet. But this is the reason why people take an anti-estrogen tablet on a testosterone cycle, is to prevent from having to feel any of those not fun at all situations that I was just talking about there.
If you would like your questions to be answered on the Steroids Podcast, go to steroidspodcast.com and leave a comment with your questions, or email or private message steroidspodcast@gmail.com or steroidspodcast on Instagram. Until next time.